Hello dear student, I am Najmul Sahar, lecturer in business studies, Vishwamana PU College, Chitradurga. So dear student, in last videos we have discussed the fourth chapter of your syllabus called business services. And today we are going to discuss one more important chapter of your syllabus, that is third chapter, private, public and global enterprise. So from this chapter around you will get 7 marks. The weightage of this chapter will be the 7 marks. Okay. So as you know, in second chapter of your syllabus, we have seen the different categories of business, different form of business. So you may witness n number of shops surrounding you. Okay. In neighbor, you have seen n number of shops like sole trading concern you have, which are offering various types of different types of goods and services. Okay. Those like your sole trading concern may be private partnership, it may be a cooperative society, a joint stock company. These are all those business which is privately owned, okay, which is owned by the few individuals, okay. And there are certain businesses, there are certain offices which are purely owned by the government, or you can say public sectors, okay. So like take it for example your postal department, your railway department. These are the few departments which is purely owned and managed by the government, okay. It may be a semi-government or it may be a central government, or partially or wholly they both are managing, they both are owned, okay. That is what we say public sectors, or you can say public companies. And there are certain companies, there are certain business who are operating more than one countries, okay. Their business base not only in India, but also they are operating, but also they are offering their services, they are providing their goods and services to the abroad, okay. At international level they are rendering their services. Such business will be termed as a multinational companies or global enterprise, okay. In this chapter, we are going to discuss in brief regarding the private sector, public sector as well as the global enterprise. So in private sector, we have already seen in our second chapter. But in detail, we are discussing about the public sector, or in public sector, which are the companies, which sectors will be included, that we are going to discuss, as well as the global enterprise. As we know that our Indian economy, our economy is opt for the mixed economy, okay. Indian economy is considered as a mixed economy. Mixed economy in the sense which consists, this mixed economy consists of both in the sense here we have private sectors or privately owned business and public owned business. Public owned business is nothing but we can say government companies, government business. So our India has opted for mixed economy. The mixed economy consists of both the sectors, private sectors as well as the public sectors, okay. And even we also have a global enterprise, okay. These three categories we are going to discuss in this chapter. As you know that the government of India in its industrial policy resolutions, Indian government of India in its resolutions, okay, in industrial policy resolution, from time to time they are defining the roles, okay, they are defining the roles and activities, allowed activities that to be undertaken by the private sector as well as the public sectors. They are defining the activities to be undertaken by the private sector as well as the public sector. In Industrial Policy Resolution Act of 1948, okay, 1948, this particular policies has emphasized, has give much clarity, defines the approach towards the development of industrial sectors. So this policy has given more emphasis or much emphasis on the development of industrial sector, okay. They have to develop the industrial base in our country in the policy of 1948. Again, In the policy, Industrial Policy Resolution Act of 1958, again this policy specifically particularly states about the defines the objectives of a public sectors. It particularly defines the objectives. What is the main objective or the goal of a public sector? So this particular policy defines or specifically states about the accelerating the rate of growth in industrialization. Okay, development of your industrialization. Not only industrialization, they also give much importance for the other sector as well. That is what in Industrial Policy of 1956 they mainly concentrate on the growth of a country and development of a industrial base in India. Next, again from the Industrial Policy Resolution Act of 1991. Okay, in 1991 they have clearly defines about they just removed the public sector companies disinvestment and deliberalization policy has been introduced, and even here means what, public sector has been transferred to the private sector. So more importance has been given to the private sector rather than the public sector, because in these two policies the public sectors has been given much importance, but later on they see that the public sectors are not performing well. When we compare the performance of public as well as the private sectors are far better than the public sector industries. That is why they have decided to deliberalize or disinvestment of public sector. Disinvestment of public sector in the sense the public sector or the government's company which are regularly, repeatedly who are incurring losses, such company has been shut down or such company has been sold to the private sectors. Okay, they give much importance for the private and the public sector company gradually reduced. Okay. And even we also offer for the foreign FDIs, FDI in the sense foreign direct investment. Okay, other companies, foreign business is also allowed to invest in our India. So from here onwards, we have seen the gradual development and we have seen the development in our economy. This is what just short history of industrial revolution. Now let us discuss about the mixed economy. So as I told you that the India has been opt for the mixed economy. So the mixed economy consists of both the sectors. One is public sector, another one is a private sector. So under public sector, we have three categories, three form of business forms. One is departmental undertaking, public corporation, or you can say statutory corporation, and government companies. Whereas a private sector includes the sole proprietorship, partnership firm, joint stock companies, HUF, Hindu Undivided Family, and cooperative society. Again in the company we also have a private as well as a public sector. In the company, in joint stock company we have again two sectors. Two categories. One is public limited companies, another one is private limited companies. Okay, so this is what the different types of mixed economy. Okay, now let us discuss in detail what is public sector and what is private sector. So here is the meaning of private sector as well as the public sector. So private sectors are those forms of business organization, or the private sector includes the companies or any form of business organization which is operated or which is owned and managed by the private entrepreneurs, private people or a group of people who are doing a business. Okay, so private sector enterprises refers to the enterprises owned and managed by the private entrepreneurs. Private entrepreneurs is nothing but any individual or any group of association of persons. They are doing their own kind of business by investing the amount for themselves, funding out of their own, they can start the business. That is called as a private sector. So the private sectors have certain features, that is ownership and management. As I told you, this is a private, fully private. Okay, an individual can manage the business, and the business is his own. Okay, that is what he has a ownership, he has a control over the business. And the main objective of private sector is to earn the profit, but not to run the services. Okay, rendering the services is not a prime objective of a private sector. And independent management. Okay, they can manage their business as they want. Okay, nobody is going to interfere in their business. They can take their own decision. That is what independent management. Though this private sector, the main objective of private sector is to earn a profit, but this private sector playing a major role or playing a crucial role in the development of a country, in the development of a economy. Okay, so these private sectors providing or they are producing the varieties of goods and services, and they are contributing much to the national income of a country, and even they are providing a number of employment opportunity. So from this, due to their efficiency in operation, okay, they are utilizing the resources effectively, through which they are contributing much to the development of a country. So their importance have not to be neglected. Okay, their importance should not be neglected. The government of India encouraging the private sector, private companies to grow, to develop their industrial base in India, and even there are certain regulations. Their activities, their operations is regulated by the government by introducing certain rules and regulations like MRTP, Monopoly Restrictive Trade Practices Competition Act. By introducing such policies, their activities have been regulated, have been controlled by the government. That is what private sector. Next one is public sector. So public sectors or public enterprises means state ownership and the operations of industrial, agricultural, financial and commercial undertakings. So these are the sectors which is partially or wholly, okay, partly or entirely, wholly owned and managed by the either by the central government or by the state government, or mixture of both state and central. These two governments are going to operate, own and manage the such sector. Okay, so the main objective of this sector is to remove the regional disparities. What are the disparities will be there among the districts, among the state? In order to remove such disparities, this is useful, this is helpful, and even they will provide, the public sector will provide the goods and services to the masses, to the public. Okay, they are, the main objective of public sector is to not to earn profit but to provide services. Of course, profit is an objective, but the importance is given to the service motive rather than the private motive. Profit motive. This is what the public sector. The form of sectors, public sectors include, as I told you, departmental undertakings, okay, statutory corporation or public corporation, as well as the government companies. And these are the forms of a public sector, whereas the forms of private sector, like as seen in our second chapter, like partnership, sole trading concern, okay, joint stock company, HUF, these are the forms of a private sector. Now let us discuss in brief about the departmental undertakings. So here is a detail of departmental undertakings. So departmental undertaking is one of the oldest and traditional form of public enterprises. So the departmental undertakings are the state enterprises managed by the government departments. So department undertaking is one of the oldest form of public sector. Okay, this departmental undertakings is owned and managed by the state, that is the government departments. That is what departmental undertakings. So examples of departmental undertakings like post, telegram, telephone services, that is which comes under the Ministry of Communication. Okay, the postal department, telegraph department, telephone department, whatever the different departments we have, that will comes under the Ministry of Communication. Railway department, okay, defense department. These are the departments, okay, which is controlled by and which is managed by the government, or it may be managed purely by the central government, or by it can be managed and owned by the partially by the central, partially by the state. Likewise, they can manage and they can control. So we will have a state-wise as well as the central-wise departments. Next, the nature and the characteristics or the features of departmental undertakings, like it is one of the oldest form of state enterprise. As I told you, it is one of the most oldest and traditional form of public sector. It is a traditional form of public sector, and it is established by the ministry. So these departmental undertakings will be established by the concerned ministry. Say for example, telecommunication department, railway department. So the railway department will comes under the Ministry of Railways. Okay, who is the Minister of Railway? It is a homework for you people. Who is the Minister of Railway? That you have to say. Who is the Minister of Commerce? You have to search the name of each minister and you have to write in your notebook. That is what it is established by the concerned ministry, and it does not have a separate legal entity. Very important, it does not have a separate legal entity. Separate legal entity in the sense the ownership and the the owners as well as the management of business, they are not one and the same, they are different. Okay, that is what separate legal entity. But what they are saying, it does not have a separate legal entity, means what? Owners and the employees, they are one and same, they are not different. That is what does not have a separate legal entity. Okay, so when we does not have a separate legal entity, then the departmental undertakings cannot file a case against any person or any third party without prior permission of a government. If you want to issue a case, if you want to file a case against any person, any party, any second person, then you have to take the permission of a government, then only you can file a case. You cannot file a case by, okay, that is what? A separate legal entity. So the overall management, the overall activity of the departments will be carried out or will be handled by the officials. Okay, will be handled who will be look around the activities of this department by the minister of a concerned ministry. Okay, official officers of a minister of concerned ministry, they are going to look around the activities, they are going to manage the activities of a certain department. Say for example, railway department, the minister of railway is going to look around the activities of that particular department. Okay, that is what the management. Okay, the decision, whatever decision wants to take, he is going to take the decision. That is what the management of concerned departments. And the employees of this department will be considered as a government employees. This is what certain elements of employee of the departmental undertakings are considered as a government employees. They are going to be recruited, they are going to be appointed as per certain rules and regulations that will be posed by the government. As the government company, they will appoint. The same conditions will be followed here. After retiring, after passing the examination, after clearing examination and interview, whatever the condition is laid down by the government, after clearing that, they will be appointed as employees of a department. Next one is funding. So the funding for the departmental undertakings directly come from the government treasury. Okay, the funding for the expenditure, the amount for the expenditure will be come from the government treasury as well as the annual budget. Annual budget which is passed by the parliament every year. From there they are going to get the fund for the expenditure of a particular department. These departments are not allowed to, raise the funds from the public. They are not allowed to raise the fund, raise the capital, collect the capital from the general public by issuing share. They are not allowed. The amount for them will be directly come from the government treasury as well as from the budget. Okay, and even whatever the amount they will earn, whatever the profit they will get, that profit should not utilized by the department itself, but such profit, such revenue will be paid. The revenue, whatever the revenue you will earn, whatever the profit you will get, that should be paid to the government, directly to the government treasury, but they should not utilize such funds. That is what? Funding. Next one is they are subjected to control. So the government, they are going to regulate through the auditing of books of account. Through the auditing their books of account, they are going to have a control over the department. That is what they are subjected to control through the auditing of the books of account of a department. They are accountable to the concerned ministry. Whatever the problem, okay, whatever the things will be there, whatever the defaults will arise, that should be accountable, that should be answerable to the concerned ministry, that should be answerable to the parliament for its performance. Whether it is a bad, whether it is a good, whatever the performance, you have to communicate. You are answerable to the concerned ministries, nothing but in a parliament they are answerable. So these are the features or characteristics of a department. Now let us discuss the advantage and disadvantage. Though the departmental undertaking is one of the most oldest and popular form of business, okay, it suffers from certain, it has certain advantage and it also suffers from certain drawbacks. Now let us see about the merits, okay, advantage, okay, what we have, okay, what we derive from the departmental undertaking. The first one is control. The first important what we see here is a controlling. As we see in a features and a nature of undertaking is the government is going to exercise the control over the departmental undertakings through auditing, through accounting, okay, audit of books of accounts and auditing their performance. Through that they will exercise the control. When the control is there, then there will be effectiveness in the performance. That is what control. Next one is accountability. The performance, the pros and cons of any department is responsible, okay, the performance of each department is responsible and they are answerable in the parliament, okay, they have to answer for their performance. That is what accountability will be there. And even source of income for the government. So the departmental undertaking will be considered as a subdivision of a government, okay, it is one of the division of a government. Whatever the amount, whatever the income, whatever the profit, whatever the revenue they will get from the departmental undertaking, okay, that has to be directly goes to the government district. So it is one of the income for the government. Next one is national security is maintained, okay. In case of security wise of the nation, okay, as you know that this departmental undertaking will be managed by, it is controlled by the officials of a government as well as the minister of a country, okay, they sorry, not country. So the officials of a government as well as the concerned ministry is going to manage, they are going to control such departments. That is why the security, the secrecy will be maintained here. These are the merits of a departmental undertaking. When we come to the demerits, okay, these departmental undertakings have certain drawbacks. Like the first one is static. Static in the sense lack of flexibility. Lack of flexibility. Okay. So the employees of the departmental undertakings, they have to follow the rigid procedures, rigid rules and regulations they have to follow. Okay. This leads to the problem in a operation. Okay, they cannot go for the newness. Okay, this will disturb the work of a department. It is what staticness, lack of flexibility. They cannot change. They have to follow whatever the rule says. Okay, they cannot take any decision as per the current situation. That is what staticness. Next is interference. Okay, the departmental undertaking is managed by the minister of a government, okay, and number of political parties will be influenced in case of their operation, in case of any decisions. Okay, so here political pleasure will be there, political parties influences will be there. That is what interference. Delay in decision making. So there will be a delay in a decision making because they have to follow the rules and regulations. They have to communicate whenever they want to take a decision in a parliament. In that case, they cannot take a decision as and when required, but the decision will be taken in inappropriate times. That is what delay in decision taking or decision making. Insensitive to the customer needs or consumer needs. As you know that the departmental undertakings is managed by or controlled by the officers. So the services are the officials who are in charge of the undertakings. They do not take care of the consumer needs. These indifferences may be ultimately harm the departmental undertakings. That is what insensitive to the consumer needs. Inefficiency. Due to the lack of knowledge, due to the lack of management skills or administrative skills, they cannot perform the operations of a department effective and efficient manner, which leads to the ineffectiveness, inefficiency in a operation. Is what the demerits of departmental undertaking. The merits like control, accountability, source of income for the government, national security is maintained. Next demerit is staticness. There is a lack of flexibility. They have to follow the strict, rigid rules and regulations. Interference from the political side. Delay in decision making, insensitive to the consumer needs because the importance is given to the official requirements but not on the consumer requirements. These indifferences will lead to the problem for the departmental undertakings. Next is they cannot properly manage the work, manage the operations of a department, which leads to the inefficiency or waste of resources. These are the demerits of departmental undertakings.